A deer stands alone in an enclosure. It has never seen a predator. Not once, not ever, not in its entire life. Neither had its mother. Neither had its mother's mother. This deer's ancestors have lived in complete safety for over 1,000 years. Researchers play a sound through a hidden speaker. A roar. Deep, low, unmistakably a predator's call. And this deer, who has never encountered anything that could possibly harm it, freezes instantly. Ears up, body rigid, staring directly at the source of the sound, transfixed, as though its life genuinely depended on the next few seconds. That deer is telling you something about your own brain that you've probably never considered. Something about fear, about how long it lingers, and about why the things that scare you today might have almost nothing to do with the actual dangers in your life. The deer in question is called Père David's deer, a species that has lived in fenced enclosures, completely isolated from predators, for more than 1,200 years. Zoologists studying this population wanted to answer a genuinely strange question. If you remove every predator from a species for over a millennium, does the fear response disappear along with the threat? Or does it linger, quietly encoded, waiting for a trigger that may never actually come? So they played the deer a series of sounds, familiar, harmless noises like crows and domestic dogs. And then, ancestral predator calls the deer species would have encountered many centuries ago, tigers and wolves. And finally, something the deer's lineage had likely never encountered at all, a lion. The results were remarkable. The deer largely ignored the crow and dog sounds, treating them as unremarkable background noise. But when tiger and wolf calls played, something changed immediately. The deer stared directly at the hidden speaker. They approached it. They listened longer, more intensely, more carefully than they did for any harmless sound. And strangest of all, the lion roar, a sound this population had almost certainly never heard in over 1,000 years of isolated existence, produced one of the strongest reactions of them all. This is the part that should genuinely unsettle you. A predator that hasn't threatened this species in centuries, tucked inside a genetic memory these deer never consciously learned, still activated a full defensive response. Not a mild flicker of curiosity, a complete, coordinated fear reaction aimed at a threat that, for all practical purposes, no longer exists in their world. Researchers studying this phenomenon describe it as a kind of evolutionary residue. Fear responses encoded deeply enough into a species that they persist for dozens, sometimes hundreds, of generations after the actual danger has vanished. The environment changed. The predators disappeared. But the wiring stayed exactly where it was, dormant, waiting, ready to fire the instant the right sound arrived. Why would evolution build something so seemingly wasteful? Why keep a fear response running for a threat that isn't there anymore? Because removing a fear response is far riskier than keeping one you no longer need. Imagine a version of this species that evolved to quickly forget predator threats the moment danger became rare. The first time an actual predator returned, even after a long absence, that population would be catastrophically unprepared. Evolution doesn't optimize for efficiency in the short term. It optimizes for survival across the worst-case scenario. And a fear response that occasionally fires without cause is a far smaller cost than a fear response that fails to fire when it's actually needed. Keeping the code running, even obsolete code, was safer than deleting it. Your brain runs on this exact same logic, and this is where the deer stop being a curiosity and start being a mirror. Think about the shape of your own fears, the ones that don't quite make sense when you examine them closely. A racing heart before public speaking, even though standing in front of strangers has never once physically harmed you. A flash of panic at rejection, even though social rejection today rarely threatens your survival the way exclusion from a tribe once did. A tightening chest when your phone buzzes with an unexpected notification. Some ancient part of you bracing for danger that almost never actually arrives. None of these responses are broken. They're identical in structure to what happened inside that deer. Ancient code, still running, still firing, long after the original threat it was built for has effectively gone extinct. Neuroscientists studying fear circuitry have found that threat responses are stored in structures like the amygdala with remarkable persistence. resistant to simple logical correction. Knowing intellectually that a threat isn't real doesn't automatically switch off the response. The deer that heard the lion roar almost certainly had no conscious concept of a lion at all. T simply reacted because the circuitry for that reaction had never been switched off, only left unused. This explains something that confuses a lot of people about their own anxiety. Why does logic so rarely calm a racing heart? Why can you know with complete certainty that you're safe and still feel your body behave as though you're not? Because the part of you generating that fear was never built to listen to logic in the first place. It was built to react first and let reasoning catch up later, if it catches up at all. There's something worth noticing in how the deer responded to the lion specifically. Researchers suggested that certain deep acoustic properties, low frequency, a particular resonance, may trigger threat recognition even in the complete absence of learned experience with that specific predator. In other words, some fear responses aren't just inherited memories of a specific danger, they're inherited templates for a category of danger, broad enough to fire at something entirely novel, as long as it resembles the shape of an old threat closely enough. This might explain why certain modern fears feel disproportionately intense even when they're brand new. A sudden loud noise, a shadow moving unexpectedly at the edge of your vision, an unfamiliar voice with a harsh, guttural tone. You may have never consciously learned to fear these specific things, yet your body reacts as though you have, because you're not actually responding to the thing itself. You're responding to how closely it resembles the shape of ancient danger. This is where it becomes genuinely useful to understand your own fear this way. If a threat response can persist for over 1,000 years after the actual threat disappeared, then the anxiety you feel today about a meeting, a text message, a stranger's tone of voice may be telling you far more about ancient code than about your actual present circumstances. Recognizing that distinction doesn't make the feeling vanish, but it does change what you do with it. Instead of treating every alarm as proof of real danger, you can start asking a different question. Is this current or is this ancestral? Is this about now or is this a lion roar playing through a speaker that was built for a world that no longer exists? So the next time your body reacts to something your mind knows is harmless, remember that deer standing perfectly still, staring at a hidden speaker, defending itself against a predator it had never once encountered in over 1,000 years of complete safety. You're not broken when this happens to you. You're simply running very old code, inherited from ancestors who needed it desperately, now firing inside a body that mostly doesn't. The predator went extinct a long time ago. The fear somehow never got the memo.